This is a demo video of our MLB stack generator tool, which allows you to generate stacks of one or two teams. One thing to keep in mind is that you can go to our other tools, for example, projections, and start there. You can go to our hitters and apply models that you may deem important. And then you can see the updated projections, and you can lock and exclude players from this tool, and it will persist. These locks and injuries and excludes will persist throughout our stack generator tool and our lineup optimizer. So it gives you the ability to go step by step and help you create the best lineup from beginning to end. So what you can do is you can go to our projections, adjust the models, find the right players, lock and exclude players, then head over to our stack generator, create stacks, save those stacks, and then go to our lineup optimizer tool and import those stacks into the lineup optimizer and then build an optimal lineup around your stacks. Okay, so let's get into it. First thing you're going to do is select a site. Right now we have DraftKings and FanDuel. We'll be adding additional sites in the future. Keep in mind that both these sites, they're essentially separate tools. So if I were to lock someone like AJ Pollock in DraftKings and then go over to FanDuel, AJ Pollock wouldn't be locked. They have separate salaries, separate projections, separate locks, separate excludes. Keep that in mind. Then you select a sport. Right now we only have MLB, but we'll have additional soon. These tabs up here are essentially filters, so all players will show all the players in the table below, catchers and so forth, and it'll show you the roster position number for each site. You can also see the injuries, which in this case it defaults to excluding all injuries for baseball. You can see the injuries below. We pull these in from Roto World. Now one thing to keep in mind is sometimes the excludes will be separate, will be a different number than the injuries number, and that's just because injuries include all players including pitchers, and pitchers aren't in stacks. So that's why these numbers may not be consistent when you first open up the tool. Just don't be alarmed. And then locks. Once you lock a player, you click on that lock button and it turns green, and those players will be filtered into this column. And then the same with excludes. If you exclude a player, you'll see a red X that'll persist, and all those players will go into your exclude filter. And then this just means that this player has an injury, and they will display on this injuries tab in the table below. Okay, so next, getting into the tool itself, you can search in the search bar any amount of text you want, and it'll search the table below. So let's say you wanted to quickly find all the Atlanta players or people facing Atlanta. You could just type in ATL, you could sort, and you'll see all the players from ATL are going up against ATL. So it's a helpful search. And then down here you have filter by teams. So what you can do here is you can actually filter by team run total provided by Vegas, and then you can also see we have over under for you. So let's say you only want to target high run teams today. Select 4, and you'll see all the teams with under 4 runs will gray out, and your excludes will automatically update. So all those players that you just filtered out are in your exclude table, and you can see them there. If you wanted to individually include a player back in, you can click the lock or unclick the exclude, and they'll go back into the player pool. So your manual updates override the filters. So we always give precedence to your manual updates. All right, the other thing you can do is exclude via time. So let's say I want to exclude all the 8-10 games. I would just click on the time 8-10, and those games will gray out. However, in this case, since you already have the team run total filter, it's overriding the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reset all our excludes and everything so that I can show you from the start what happens when you click on a time. So if there are no other filters and I click on 8-10, it will filter out all these games and all the teams in these games. These reset links, if you click reset all, it'll reset your locks, excludes, exposures, and projections. If you reset just locks, it'll reset your locks and so forth. So what I'm going to do is you can see there's 88 excludes. I'm just going to exclude. I'm going to reset excludes, and it'll reset back to just defaulting to the injuries. So that's some helpful ways to find the teams and the players you like. I'm just going to close that, and I'm going to open up advanced options. So this is a way to control what you want in your stacks. So first of all, you can select the number of teams you'd like to include in each stack. In this case, I'm just going to select one team. So this means that the players in my stack will only be from one team. I then select the number of players I want in my stack. In this case, I want 5 players, and the lowest batting order I want. So if you don't like batting order lower than 4 or 5, you can select that, and the tool will exclude all players in 6, 7, 8, 9. Now the only exception to that is if you want to run a wraparound stack. And the way you would do that is that this lowest batting order would have to be a lower number than the number of players you've selected. So for example, if I select 5 players now and then select a lowest batting order of 4, that's only 4 possible batting order positions, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it forces the optimizer to wrap, and what it's going to do is it's going to wrap around to the 9th position. So when you do this, it ensures that you're going to get the 9th position. You'll get 9th, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the different various combinations of that. So I'll show you an example of that. This is a wraparound stack. It's not going to allow you to select consecutive batting order. It forces you to because it's a wraparound, and I'm going to generate 25 stacks. And so what you see in these stacks is you'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, and 9, and these are the various stacks with the highest possible output in terms of projected points. Some players use that as a contrarian play, and also in the AL there is no DL, so it can be a good play at times. Definitely more heavily used in GPP contests. So let's just say that I wanted 4 players and I wanted the lowest batting order as 4. You could select whether you want it to be a consecutive batting order. So consecutive batting order means 1, 2, 3, or 4. You're basically forcing the optimizer to do consecutive, or you can give it a choice. So for example, if I want to do 6, and I could say, I'm going to let the optimizer select any, so they can either do consecutive or non-consecutive, and then I can click generate stacks, and you're basically setting the parameters for the optimizer. So secondly, you can turn on individual player exposure, and this is one of the more advanced options you'll see in DFS. Very few optimizers have this, and no optimizer has it in the way that we've built it. So individual player exposure is on. This field becomes editable. So if it's off, it grays out and you can't edit it. I'm going to turn it back on. If I have a player that's locked with exposure on, the exposure is going to go to 0% and allow you to set the exposure. So for example, if I lock a player and select 50%, I'm locking that player into 50% of the lineups. So if I run 100 lineups, AJ Pollock will most definitely be in 50 of these lineups. You're forcing the optimizer to put that person in 50% of the lineups. If you don't have a lock on and you have 50% exposure, what you're telling the optimizer is you're giving the optimizer the ability to put in this player 50% or less. But if the optimizer decides that he's not worthy based on his projection, it could exclude AJ Pollock altogether and not show AJ Pollock in any of your stacks that you generate. So there's a difference between lock and lock exposure, and then just exposure without locks. Now let's say that individual player exposure is off and you lock a player. This locks the player in no matter what. No filter is going to override that. There's no exposure percentage, so AJ Pollock will be in 100% of these lineups. If you exclude a player, same thing. So we're going to turn exposure back on. This person's locked, it'll go to 0, and I'm going to tell the optimizer I want AJ Pollock in 50% of my lineups. You can also upload projections. You just click on this upload now, and it'll take you to the upload page, and you can upload projections per site and per sport. You download our player file, and then you edit the player values you want, the projections, and you upload file, and those new projections will display in the My Projection column, and then you click Override Cafe Projections, and your projections will then display in the tool. You may have to refresh. So I've already covered what these reset buttons do. Each item has a little tooltip which you can take a look at. It'll give you some information on what it means, help guide you through the process. And then down below we have a name column, position, batting order, team, opponent, opposing pitcher, hand. So if you're into splits, check that out. Salary, projection, which you can edit and influence what the optimizer selects, and you can either click out of the box or click return. Exposure, which we've covered, and then various elements and data that will help you along your way. Park factor, run total, WOBA, ISO, OPS, WRC plus, and cafe value, which we believe is the truest value of a player. Takes into effect salary cap, salary, roster. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to generate stacks. I'm going to generate 10 stacks and you can see the option is at the bottom of the table and above. You can select the number of stacks you want to generate. Each time you generate stacks, each time you click this button, it creates a new tab. And so you can generate multiple tabs. You could potentially have 7, 10 tabs here. You could have 1,000 lineups in a matter of seconds. You can then name these tabs. So if I want to name one, my Blue Jays stack, click out of it, click return. And then I'm going to name one, my Cubs stack, click return. So you can organize your stacks, and then furthermore, you can name your lineups, your stack generators. So I'm going to name this my Blue Jays. Once again, this is my top Blue Jays. So I'm going to name it Blue Jays 1, click return. It tells me the total amount of points that this projects. It tells me the salary used, the salary remaining, and it gives some other information down below. You can then click Save Stack, and it will save your stack. You can see the save stacks. As soon as I save a stack, this changes. This number changes. If I save another one, it updates. So you know those stacks are being saved. You can then click on that, and you'll see the save stacks here. We also have a Players Used tab, which allows you to select between the different tabs you've created, and it'll tell you the player, the exposure percentage, the actual raw number of times they've displayed in your lineups. And so you can make sure that you minimize your risk and aren't overexposed to a player. Position, team, and some of the other values as well. So we're going to be updating this tool. We're going to have additional options. You're going to be able to export your lineups. You're going to be able to potentially add those lineups directly to sites. We're going to allow you to download lineups. We're going to allow you to share on Twitter and so forth. So check back often. Good luck and go make some money.